Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. Welcome to my inaugural broadcast. My name is Adamantium, and I'm going to be with you for the next hour going through questions that I've received over the past year or so regarding the Zeitgeist Movement, the Venus Project, and the advocacy of what we call a resource-based economy. Now, I do apologise to everyone listening, since I've been planning this show for months and months and months. It's just there's been major changes in my life, over the past year or so. But however, I feel extremely liberated now, and much more free to pursue what I want to do. So I'd like to extend a warm thanks to all of you for having the patience. I really do appreciate it. And while I'm dishing out thanks, I'd also like to send out a warm thank you to Barry Burford, aka Rumpton Skunkton, or Digital Skunk, for my intro and outro music. He did a wonderful job composing it, so Barry, I thank you. Now, back to the context of this particular show. As the title suggests, it makes logical sense as my maiden voyage, so to speak, to make this show as more of an introductory session, not just for the topic at hand, but also for myself. It just makes logical sense that I should start with an introductory show. Now, some of you listening will be listening because you are friends of mine and I've badgered you into tolerating my voice. Not that I ever shut up in normal life anyway, but still. Some of you are not familiar with me, so I will tell you who I am. I am an activist and advocate for the Zeitgeist Movement, and I have been for probably about a year and a half now, and I live in Kent in southeast England. What started me in my awakening, so to speak, was not really one event or time, but more a vast combination of things over a protracted period of time. Ever since I was little, really, I was always questioning things and trying my best to find out, the reason for things. I've always questioned the motives and structure of organised religion, for example. Even being brought up in a sort of mildly, borderline mildly religious household. My parents weren't, overly religious or anything like that, but, we did attend church, during my youth. I just remember being incredibly bored and useless in that kind of setting. Somehow, I knew it wasn't just a case of me being a restless child. I knew that somehow religion was just not for me. But moving on from that, in school, for the 1997 elections, my school held a sort of mock election where pupils volunteered to be candidates for this mock election, and me personally, I chose to be a candidate for the Green Party. Naively, I actually did a speech to the school, not really knowing a great deal of the Green Party's manifesto. I was only 14 at the time, but hey, I actually got 95 votes in the end, which really struck me as profound. Obviously I wasn't naive enough to think that I got this number of votes because of what I said, because the pupils knew really what the Green Party stood for. I actually got quite a bit of flack for it anyway, but that's an aside. The candidate who actually won this particular election was the candidate for the Labour Party, but I dare say the total of 130 votes that decided that win was it was probably mainly because the pupils were really only voting because that's how their parents vote. But that in itself was quite interesting, and it got me thinking along the lines of how people don't really think for themselves, but rather how other people think. Like many others, moving on now. Like many others, I was shocked at the events of 9/11, or as we in England should probably say 11/9, There's a difference in the time, date, not time. However, there was something that that didn't sit quite right with me about it. I mean, watching the news stories, and back then I did pay attention to the mainstream news, but anyway, but just seeing the towers come down, it just seemed strange. I mean, I couldn't really put my finger on it, and and obviously in later years it led me on to different paths of research. But I think what really started my quest for something better as as a planet really was the beginning of the economic recession of 2006. I began to realize that what we have is somehow not working, and even though I didn't fully understand why or how it was inherently flawed, I endeavored to do research into what alternatives could be implemented. I was formulating plans of emailing Gordon Brown. Gordon Brown was the Prime Minister at the time, and just asking him, but what else can we do? It's laughable that I think of it now, but ironically, at that very moment, I was actually in the background watching the film Star Trek: First Contact, and it was one of Patrick Stewart's lines that really rang true with me about what alternatives we should seek. The line goes something like, the economics of the future are somewhat different. The acquisition of wealth is no longer the driving force in our lives. We work to better ourselves and the rest of humanity. Now, this really got me thinking along the lines that we can have a way to have a better world through the means of not having money. Because obviously I'd heard the old adage, money is the root of all evil, and while I agreed with it to a certain extent, I'd never really realized that how blinkered I was to the perception that we need money to survive. Because after all, it's the method of which we exchange things, right? And but while it does corrupt, there isn't really a way around it, right? Or so I thought. But that one line in that film really hit home with me. I mean, even though I had seen the film many, many times before, but its significance never really struck me as it should have. So from there I started to research the economics of the Star Trek world, which, as I found out, turned out to be really nothing more than just a form of neo-Marxism. But that aside, I mean, I saw the poetic notions in it. I mean, I realised that, oh crikey, there's even more government control than we have in this world. But I saw the poetic notions in it, and now I realised that I just couldn't accept that the extent of political control over people's lives was any better than the world that we have now, eventually. But unfortunately, in the summer of 2007, I was engaged in a long medical crisis, and all search for a better world took a back seat, so to speak. However, when I recovered, it was around 2008, 2009. By this time I found myself in a deep interest of conspiracy theories and just random acts of research. I would just go onto YouTube and just, watch videos, and then click the videos in the related videos list, and just literally jump from topic to topic, absorbing information in a random but interesting manner. Okay, this is where it's actually going to get relevant now, so hang with me. One day, I stumbled upon a video entitled in capital letters, "Should this video be banned?" And what it was, unbeknownst to me at the time, was about the first 10 minutes of the first version of part 1 of Zeitgeist the movie. Now, what struck me most was the sheer fact that none of this information I saw had ever come to light to me before. I mean, I'd read up on the secrets of religion before, but the sheer honesty and blatant obvious nature of these facts just blew my mind. So, I researched some more and found the full film, and from there, I was hooked. Also, I found Zeitgeist Addendum, watched that, and, to be completely honest, after watching it, besides immediately starting my research about the movement and therefore joining as well, since I, felt a deep agreement with this direction, I must admit I felt a strange combination of anger and joy. I mean, I'm not sure how you guys would be able to relate to that, but I felt angry that I had been born into this world of disparity and corruption when it was allowed to descend into this pool of squalor and decay for so long. When these ideas that we advocate with the movement could have been put into practice decades ago. However, on the flip side, I felt an overwhelming sense of joy because I've finally found something that I can give everything I can for. I'd found a place that will tolerate my endless ranting and my perpetual questioning, and embraces something as productive as opposed to something negative that should be suppressed. But anyway, that's my story, and I will shut up about me and move swiftly onto your questions. So, buckle up, sit back, and here we go. Question 1. What is the Zeitgeist Movement? Okay, the Zeitgeist Movement, it was first conceived out of Zeitgeist Addendum, which explores exactly how our monetary-based economy really works, revealing processes and criminalities about the system itself that are really just hidden away and lied about by our educational systems and the media. While also explaining exactly what adverse effects all these things have on our society as a whole, our values, and ultimately our environment. Towards the end, it explores the Venus Project, offering a viable solution to our problems on this planet. The Zeitgeist Movement, in its creation here, was the logical step. Excuse me. It's a global grassroots movement which exists as the activist and communications arm of the Venus Project. Put very, very simply. Sorry for the tangent there. Okay, question 2. What is the Venus Project? The Venus Project, as it is known today, was founded many decades ago by self-taught social engineer and industrial designer Jacques Fresco. It is, in essence, an organization which proposes a workable and logical plan for creating a truly humane, sustainable and peaceful society, both in values and in physical methodology. And we call this a resource-based economy. Question 3.